Hello Internet, it's Jeff here, sitting in a random Airbnb in Italy talking about his Kenya safari itinerary. The travel content creation hustle is very real in this moment in history. Today, like I just said, I'm going to be talking about my 14-day, 2-week Kenya itinerary that I experienced last summer. I'm so excited to reflect on this trip and share with you all the things that I did. This is a common request I get from people who are curious to know what I did in Kenya. This was a dream come true trip and I have so much to say about it. So today I'm finally making the video where I'm going to share with you my itinerary. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jeff Hyer. I'm a media producer originally from Montana who's obsessed with ecotourism, conservation, and places in the world where you can experience wildlife. This is why on this channel there's a huge emphasis on these topics, and that's why I'm talking about this one today. So I could talk about animals, safaring, and all of these experiences all day long, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to stay really on track and focus on what this topic is all about, which is my Kenya itinerary. Last summer, which was the summer of 2021, I experienced one of the best trips of my entire life. This was a 33-day long trip to East Africa, which included Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the Kenya portion of our journey, which is the majority of this trip. Total, I spent 14 days in this beautiful country, exploring all the natural wonders that this place has to offer. This video is here to give you a better idea of what to expect on a 2-week trip safari to Kenya, how many places can you visit, what are the game parks actually like, maybe you're trying to decide which ones to go to. Maybe you're wondering how easy it is to get from one place to another and you're not really sure how to map out your 2 weeks in Kenya. That's why this video is here. I'm going to be talking about my experience, what we achieved in 2 weeks to give you the best understanding to help you plan for your dream trip. And please note that this was my 3rd trip to Kenya. It's one of my favorite places in the entire world. My first trip here was when I was 16 years old doing a study abroad summer program where I stayed with a host family in NAIROBI. This is what really gave me my first taste of the safari life. Ever since, I've been utterly obsessed with going on safari. I do everything possible to go on more and more as much as I can and share with you my experiences. So that's where I am today. So with that said, let's not blabber on any longer. I'm gonna get right into it, starting with day 1. So my sister, my brother-in-law, and myself arrived in Nairobi hyper early, which was about 5 a.m. in the morning, to then embark straight from the airport to the beautiful MAASAI Mara. This drive is definitely on the longer side. It's about 6 to 7 hours if I recall. It's definitely not a boring drive. You're going to go through the famous Rift Valley in Kenya where you're going to have sweeping views of the valleys below. My first trip to the MAASAI Mara ever was in 2016 and this road here was not entirely paved, so it was a big surprise to go in 2021 and find that it was, making the journey much more comfortable all the way through. Definitely not as bumpy as it was my first experience there. The MAASAI Mara is perhaps the most popular safari destination in the entire world, and for the right reasons. This is a place you definitely don't want to miss on your trip to Kenya. It would be a crime if you don't experience this place. There's exceptional wildlife here, and the abundance of animals makes this a must-see place on your Kenya trip, which is why we started here. It's also very well known for the great wildebeest migration that happens annually from the months of July to September. Millions of wildebeest and zebra cross from the Tanzania side over the border, crossing the rivers into the MAASAI Mara to graze on the fresh grasslands. This is a huge phenomenon and wildlife spectacle that people flock to see every single year. This is definitely the most expensive time to go and visit this because it is peak season. Everyone wants to get their chance at witnessing the crazy mass numbers of these animals migrating from the south. So if any place in Kenya, you probably want to spend most of your time in the MAASAI Mara as opposed to anywhere else. It is one of the larger game parks to cover, and I definitely recommend you just totally invest as much time into this place as possible. This is because every single day in the MAASAI Mara will be totally different from the last. You never know what you're going to find when you're on game drive. So to increase your chances at witnessing the big 5 and not just seeing them but seeing them in action, I definitely recommend spending about 2 to 3 days here, 3 nights at least. For the sake of this trip, we did spend 3 nights at the MAASAI Mara. For those of you who are interested, we stayed at the Mara SERENA Hotel, which is a really beautiful resort that's beautifully located right in the Mara Triangle. The Mara Triangle is perhaps the most concentrated point of wildlife in the entire area. This is probably a place I would not normally afford if I was going on a regular safari, but we got to experience this place at a very reasonable rate because it was early summer of 2021 when COVID was still very prevalent and there weren't as many people traveling to these places. Definitely recommend if you want to spend a heftier amount on a place like this. I personally don't think I would spend as much money to stay at a place this luxurious. I'm more interested in the wildlife myself. So at this point of the trip, we actually ventured from the Masai Mara into Tanzania. We spent a week there exploring places like the Serengeti and the Ngorongoro crater, but for the sake of this video, I'm just gonna pretend like that didn't happen and stick to the Kenya specific itinerary. And I'm gonna jump to Amboseli National Park, which is where we came from when we returned to Kenya. To clarify, we went Masai Mara down into Tanzania, drove all the way back, and came back across a different border crossing up into Amboseli. This does not mean that Amboseli National Park cannot happen after the Masai Mara. It is quite a big journey to go all the way there, but a lot of people do it. It's not an uncommon thing to do. But if you want to experience both of these places, this is the way you have to do it. You have to make the journey there, and I definitely think it's worth it. If you have a bougier budget, you can definitely do a direct flight there, but driving from the Masai Mara to Amboseli is going to be a full day's journey. It's going to be an exciting journey nonetheless, and it can be done. Amboseli sits on the southern region of the country and is a gorgeous, gorgeous safari destination that you don't want to miss. Amboseli is a place you might want to consider on your safari trip because of its abundant African elephant population. It's known as the land of giants. It's also one of the few places in the world where you can experience big tuskers. Big tuskers is a term that refers to elephants with tusks that are so long that they scrape the ground. They are the biggest and the best, and there's only about 20 or so of them remaining in the wild today, and a lot of them live within the Amboseli-Tsavo region, so this is your best chance at seeing one. And not to flex, but I did see one of the big tuskers on my trip there. You are guaranteed some epic elephant experiences in Amboseli if you choose to go. Other highlights of going there would include Amboseli Lake. It is here where we got to witness thousands of pink flamingos. There's prolific bird watching here. Another huge reason to go to Amboseli is to get a gorgeous view of Kilimanjaro herself. It is the largest freestanding mountain in Africa, and although the mountain is sitting on the Tanzania side, it is in this game park in Kenya where you can get these amazing, phenomenal views of the Kilimanjaro in the backdrop. This is where you're going to get the Africa shot. If you're lucky, you're going to be able to see a big tusker standing in front of Kilimanjaro. How epic is that? This park is much, much smaller than the Masai Mara, which is why you can cover a lot of ground in a short period of time. So I would recommend spending 2 full days in Amboseli. In our case, we spent 3 nights, 2 days. We stayed at the Zebra Plains Lodge, which was one of my favorite lodges in all of Kenya. Definitely recommend visit there. That was arranged through our tour operator. So from Amboseli, we traveled back to Nairobi. Now it's at this point in the trip, you might want to consider some of the other game parks and national parks in that area. You're kind of in the territory of Tsavo West, Tsavo East. There's also Mombasa, which is a really fascinating city to explore. Most people might want to visit Diani Beach or the other gorgeous beaches on the Kenyan coastline. I have not had the chance to visit those places yet, but hope to on my next trip. So just consider those as options before moving all the way back to Nairobi, but if you're still trying to stick to the 2-week time frame and want to stick to this itinerary in particular, that's where I am at this point. So for us, this was actually the end of our East Africa safari trip. My sister and brother-in-law were unfortunately unable to continue to their journey there and had to go back to work in the US, so at that point they left. But for me, I was not ready to go home yet. That's why I extended my trip in another 4 days, which is how I was able to spend 14 days total in the country of Kenya. So before they left, we experienced some places within Nairobi. This would include the famous Giraffe Manor or the Giraffe Center, where you can go and feed giraffes. We also went to the famous carnivore restaurant. Another place I recommend visiting is the David Sheldrick's Elephant Orphanage. Unfortunately, it was closed the week we were there, but if you get the chance, don't forget to include this. So at this point of the trip, I was on solo safari. And what did I do on solo safari? Well, I went to 2 gorgeous game parks that I think you should consider on your next safari trip. The first one is Samburu National Reserve. This park is a place I knew the least about, but exceeded my expectations the most. This place is absolutely breathtaking, and if you are a true wildlife nerd like I am, this is a place you want to go. It was about a 6-hour drive to get here from Nairobi, which was pretty smooth, and I was totally enjoying all the views and sights there were to see along the way. What makes Samburu so unique is that it's in the central part of Kenya, and it's much more sub-Saharan type environment, so you're going to witness species that are not to be found anywhere else in Kenya. To give you a better example, when you see giraffes, zebras, or guinea fowls here, they are a different species than those found in other places in Kenya. To give you an example, in other places in Kenya, you're going to find the plain zebra or the common zebra, and it is in Samburu where you're going to see the critically endangered GIRAFFE zebra. Same thing goes for reticulated giraffes and vulturine guinea fowls. There are so many unique species found in the sub-Saharan game reserve. that makes it extraordinary. I don't know if it's where I was at in life emotionally, or the fact I was just on solo safari, which has even more of a profound effect on you, but there's something about this place that was just magical, and I've been missing it ever since. In Samburu, I spent 3 nights at ASHNIL camp. This was a great place right in the heart of Samburu to relax and enjoy the natural world. There were plenty of baboons and other primates to keep you company. This is a place where you can enjoy a nice meal and see elephants roaming by. One of the most peaceful, serene places I've ever experienced. So Samburu National Reserve sits adjacently to Buffalo Springs, and is because they're right next to each other, you can easily cross the border from one to the next. I definitely recommend visiting this place if you want more of a unique experience in Kenya. In my case, it was a much more exclusive private experience, way less safari vehicles than the Masai Mara and AMBOSELI. Honestly, just such a special place. Definitely very, very hot though. I had such lucky wildlife sightings. I, being the animal nerd I am, got to see so many species I'd never seen in the wild before, including the Beza oryx, which is another species you won't find other places in Kenya except for at Samburu National Reserve. So anyway, that's Samburu for you. So from there, I went from Samburu National Park to a place called Old PEJETA Conservancy. Old PEJETA Conservancy is a place that most people might not have as much interest going to as I do. I went here because I was very interested in meeting the last 2 northern white rhinos on the planet, which call this place home. That's right, you heard me, the last 2 northern white rhinos on the planet, which is a subspecies of white rhinoceros that are only found here. Seeing these 2 very iconic rhinos was a very special experience, and I have a full video about just that in particular on my YouTube channel for you to watch if you're interested. But for the sake of this video, let's just talk about the itinerary. So I only ended up spending 1 night here. It's quite a small place. It used to be a private ranch before it was converted into a conservancy. This place is renowned for being a rhinoceros sanctuary. You're practically tripping on rhinos when you go here. It's definitely much smaller than the other places I've mentioned in this video. There's also a chimpanzee rescue center. It's a very kid-friendly place to go. I highly recommend considering this on your safari trip if you haven't already. It was there I had a very special experience interviewing and meeting some of the other people who work and dedicate their efforts and livelihoods to the rhino conservation in Kenya. I could literally talk rhino to you all day long. Trust me, don't test me, I will. But for the sake of this video, I need to stay on the itinerary. So I only spent 1 night there, and then from there, I journeyed all the way back to Nairobi, which is about a 5-hour drive in total. And Nairobi is, of course, where the journey ends, and I'm about to fly home all the way back to the US. It was a very sad moment, but not without doing 1 last game drive. On my last day in Kenya, I had pretty much the whole day to spend in Nairobi before my flight left at 10 p.m. at night. And I chose to spend that day the only way I knew how, which was to go to Nairobi National Park. Nairobi National Park is a very unique place to visit. It is kind of like a great place to get your first introduction to safaris. It's a small park that's right in the city of Nairobi. You can see the cityscapes in the background, which is very unconventional. It is here where you can see lions and rhinos and giraffes, just perhaps a 30-minute drive away from the hotel you're staying at in Nairobi. I love this place in particular because it's done a phenomenal job at generating enthusiasm and wildlife interest from the local populations in Kenya. It's a great place to spend a full day. You can have picnics there. As far as I know, it's one of the few parks in Kenya where you can drive your own vehicle in if you choose to. So anyone with a car can go right in and go explore the wildlife themselves. I can't even believe the sightings I had in this park. I thought nothing would happen in Nairobi National Park for some reason, knowing it's kind of on the smaller end and maybe not as exciting as the Masai Mara, but it was here I got to experience my first lion hunt, and I was so blown away and surprised in that moment. I couldn't even believe I was witnessing this. So definitely don't overlook a visit here. It's totally worth it. And it's a great place to go as soon as you get off the plane or are about to go back home. It's a quick last little safari trip to squeeze in before it's too late. All right, if you need a written rundown of what I just explained, I have the itinerary listed out in front of you here. Take a screenshot, use this as a reference point when planning your own trip. This is a very reasonable, feasible trip that you may consider doing if you have 2 weeks to spend in this country. A great way to utilize this would be to use it as a template. Maybe you want to go to this place that's nearby that's more appealing to you. You can replace those dates with the ones I have here. There are many ways you can play around with this itinerary. And there you have it. That's my 14-day Kenya itinerary. And trust me, there's so much more you can do in this beautiful country. You could easily spend months there exploring all the gorgeous natural sights this place has to offer. I am dying to go back. I am praying that I can come up with the funds to return to Kenya this spring, perhaps. It's kind of an ambitious ask, but we'll see if it works out. My goal is to go back to Old PEJETA and see these rhinoceroses. I want to go back to the Masai Mara and explore more corners of that beautiful place. There's something about Kenya that is simply magical, and I don't use that term lightly. I have yet to experience places like Tsavo East, Tsavo West, Mombasa, and the coastline. There's so much to do here. I want to go hiking in Mount Kenya, but don't worry, if you only have 2 weeks for a Kenya Dream Safari, you are still going to experience so much beauty in this world. So I hope this video helped give you a better understanding of what to expect on your safari journey. I hope it helped you kind of map out what you can and cannot do in 2 weeks and which game parks might be of most interest to you. If you have any other questions for me, definitely drop them in the comments below. And don't forget, if you want to learn more about ecotourism and wildlife experiences in the world, subscribe to this channel. Thanks so much for watching and supporting my creative journey. I appreciate you all. Until next time. Thank you.